All right, welcome everybody to virtual stormwater inspections with live Q&A. We are going to get started. Hope you're all having a beautiful evening. So nice out. Thanks for taking the time to join us when it's in the 70s in spring. Okay. So first of all, hello, I'm Kelsey Mae Crane. I work for Thurston County Community Planning, and I've been a stormwater outreach professional for just about 4 years. And I am your instructor in the online course, as well as the host of tonight's webinar. So it is a pleasure to be here with you virtually. Our purpose tonight is to show a virtual stormwater facility inspection. Normally we would do this live and in person with our workshops that we've been doing for years, but we are making the best of our situation we're all in together. So we'll have a Q&A session in a live format to replicate that experience. And a really big piece of what we're doing is getting connected. So connecting you all with your local jurisdiction's stormwater inspector, and for us to be connected also with our community. We have a very collaborative team. So tonight we have myself from Thurston County, as well as Anne Marie Pierce, Kathy Lynn, and Skylar Specht. And from the City of Olympia, we have Susan McCleary and Kane Ostiffen. From the City of Tumwater, we have Meredith Greer, Matthew Joseph, and Dave Kangiser. And from the City of Lacey, we have Emily Watts, Carlos Aviles Ortiz, and Gagan Brar. So let's talk about webinar details. So tonight's webinar should be an hour to 90 minutes in length, and there's a chance that we'll go over if the Q&A gets really, really good. We're happy to stay long if folks have questions. All participants have been automatically muted with your videos off, so nobody can see you nor hear you. And all panelists, please remain muted until the Q&A. Once Q&A happens, all panelists will turn their video on and will be in view for all of the participants to see. Make sure that you submit questions throughout the webinar. So how we do this is move your mouse cursor or scroll down to the bottom of your screen, and you'll see an icon appear that says Q&A. Click on that, and that's where you're going to submit any questions that you have throughout the webinar. We'll go over as many live as possible after the virtual inspection, and some of them will get answered through text. This webinar is being recorded and will be made public within 1 week. So I will upload this webinar to the course platform within a week, and it will also get uploaded to Thurston County's YouTube. Just a reminder, we're all navigating this online world together. Let's be patient with one another. We'll do our very best to make this experience as seamless and useful for you as possible. Okay, so we're going to do a quick poll. There's only 4 questions, but you won't be able to see them all unless you scroll down using the gray bar along the right of the poll box. And just so everyone's aware, the poll answers are submitted anonymously, so no one will know who is submitting what. That is my dog. Okay, so with that, the poll is launching. Okay, everyone has voted. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. All right, so it looks like what stormwater facility type is your neighborhood most interested in learning more about? And as usual, ponds came in as number 1 with 50%, ditches and swales with 10%, catch basins with 30%, and LID, GSI, things like permeable pavements, rain gardens, bioinfiltration cells, that came in with 10%. Which part of stormwater systems management is most challenging for your neighborhood? Inspections came in with 20%, hiring a contractor with 20%, budgeting for maintenance, repairs, and replacements with 30%, and stormwater planning in general with 30%. All right. What is your favorite part about spring? Nobody said the smell, once again. Okay. Birds chirping, I hear ya. 20% say birds chirping, 20% flowers blooming. Nobody said spring showers, and we actually haven't had a lot of spring showers quite yet, but it looks like some may be coming. More daylight with 60%. And how is your experience so far with the online course? Oh, I love seeing that 0% say help. That's great. I've really done my best to message out all of the instructions and details just as thoroughly as possible to make it easy. 30% say pretty smooth, 40% say very good, and 30% say amazing. I'm almost finished already. I think it's great. A lot of people are already finished. A lot of people are working through the material at a great pace. And now, virtual stormwater inspections. So this inspection was recorded in mid-August of 2020. So you're going to notice that it's very sunny. It was a very hot day. And Dave Kangiser from the City of Tumwater is leading the virtual inspection with Skylar Specht from Thurston County behind the camera. So let's dive in.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Dave. I'm with the City of Tumwater. I'm a water resources specialist for the water program there. And I'll walk you through the inspection process and some of the tricks of the trade and the tools of the trade that I use for my inspections, and hopefully that'll help you out with your inspections for your homeowners associations. First, we'll go over some of the tools that you'll need for your inspection. You might get wet, so good pair of boots. You want a flashlight, a good flashlight that you can see down into catch basins and up into inlets and outlets. A good pair of gloves. You'll want a camera, your storm ponds. You might need a set of loppers if you have to get access to any particular area. And you'll need a catch basin rod. This is to probe the inside of the catch basin to see how much sediment you have. And right here I just have a piece of a 1-inch PVC pipe that will work just fine, and I've actually got it marked with the different increments of a foot and 6 inches. So should be able to tell how much sediment we have and how big our sump is based on that. You'll also want your inspection form. Now, it's really important that you update your contact information. A lot of times that's the only way we'll be able to tell who you are and how to contact you is through this form. Make sure it's filled out completely. And you'll also want your as-builds. And for this particular pond area I have the as-builds for, this is really going to help us out to tell us what we have here as far as inventory of the facilities. And it's also going to tell us where the water is flowing to. So we should be able to capture everything that's here at the ponds from these as-builds. Now I want to go into these as-builds a little bit for you so you can understand what I'm looking at when I look at these as-builds. First, you'll have this legend, and this is going to tell you what all these symbols mean. And a lot of it's engineering speak, but you should be able to tell just from this basic legend what we're going to be looking at. You'll also want to pay attention to the general notes. Sometimes that has a few things that you'll be seeing in the specs that you might have questions about, and it might be answered in those general notes. Here's the plan for the pond itself. We have a couple of catch basins here. We have a couple of inlets to the wet pond. We have an overflow to the dry pond, and we have another inlet to this dry pond. So we're going to check out all those. The other thing that these as-builds will tell you is the elevation of your pond, elevation of the bottom of the pond and the elevation of the top of the pond. So based on these, you should be able to tell how much sediment has accumulated in the bottom of the pond if you need to clean it out at any particular time. And again, here's more elevations for the bottom of the dry pond, and then any of the facilities that are associated with your pond. This set of plans has a planting plan as well for the landscaping. So you can tell if you've got damaged or diseased trees or shrubs, you'll know exactly what those trees or shrubs are so you can replace them. And again, that tells you what they are in the legend. So you want to pay attention to that. And then again, any notes that go along with that planting plan. So the as-bills are really important to know the inventory of your facility. So make sure you can get these through your jurisdiction. You call your inspector, call your water resources program at the jurisdiction that you live at, and they can help you out get these and walk you through them if you have any questions about them as well. Let's see. So from there, it's a good idea as well to take a garbage bag with you just in case you run into any trash. So I'll usually tie that around my belt loop and put it in my pocket. It's also a good time to check the garbage bags in your pet waste station if you have one. A lot of times these dry pond areas are good alternative use for dogs to play in and whatnot. So with that, the catch basins, the water comes into the catch basin and then flows into the pond. And I usually like to follow the water when I do my inspection. So it's important to note too that when you do these catch basins, that you only want to do the catch basins on the private drives, not in the right-of-way. The jurisdiction's public works office will handle the catch basins in the right-of-way. So don't bother with those. We got them. If you find a problem with those though, don't hesitate to call us at the city or the county and tell us there's a problem with them so we can come out and clean them out for you. So here we have our first catch basin. And you can see we got it coned off. You can see I'm wearing my high-vis shirt here. What you're going to want to do is stick that probe right down in the catch basin and go all the way to the bottom. Jam it all the way down there so you know. Then when you pull it up, you'll have your water level. My water level's right here at 2.5 feet. Now I can also tell where my sediment starts. That's about 8 inches or so. So we're about 1/3 full there. We're going to want to get that cleaned out eventually, real soon. I'll show you what the sump is. We want that 1/3 full of the sump is the trigger for have that cleaned out. Now the sump is the distance between the bottom of the inlet pipe and the bottom of the catch basin. And that's your sump. So I'll show you that right here. Lift this up. And here you can see there's the bottom of the pipe and the water level there, and the sump is all the way to the bottom, from that bottom of the pipe to all the way to the bottom. So the trigger is 1/3. Just be careful if you're removing these grates, they're really heavy. Sometimes it takes 2 people, so make sure you have a partner when you're doing this. So from here, the water flows to the wet pond. So we're going to go to the wet pond here. We're going to wait for traffic. The next stop is the inlet to the wet pond. So we'll check the inlet. Now the inlets, you want to check to make sure that they're not full of sediment. You want to check to make sure the energy dissipator is intact, the riprap or the rocks. You want to check to make sure it's clear, free of vegetation. So this particular inlet is actually a little bit submerged. and that's okay. We can still check it out here. You can see here, this is our riprap, and it looks really good. It's in really good shape. There's no vegetation that's covering it. Our inlet pipe is free of sediment. There's no vegetation that's impeding water flow around that, so that looks really good. This is a great looking inlet. Now, while we're here at the wet pond, we also want to look in the general pond and look for vegetation. If vegetation's overgrown, we'll want to have that vegetation managed. Cattails are a big problem in wet ponds. And we like to see less than 25% of the pond area covered in cattails. If you're going to have somebody come in and remove the cattails, just remove them all if you can, because they'll come back just fine. But 25% is the threshold for cattail maintenance. You also want to check for invasive species and noxious weeds. Now we have a couple here. We have Scotch broom. We've got some thistle. So we'll have this come in, and the crews come in and treat this or remove it mechanically. You can find out what the noxious weeds are in Thurston County through the Thurston County noxious weed list online. We have a link to that on all the jurisdictions. And if you have any questions about what a noxious weed is or how to treat it, just get a hold of somebody at your jurisdiction and they can help you walk through the process of getting rid of the noxious weeds. Let's see, from here, you'll want to also check to make sure that the liner is intact. Since this is a wet pond, it's got a liner that keeps the water in it. So obviously it's holding water in the middle of August, so it's probably in pretty good shape. That's a good sign. And you also want to check the banks to make sure there's no erosion on the bank. And here it looks pretty good. And you'll want to walk all the way around your pond just to make sure that there's no erosion. And if there is, you'll want to get that treated and get some more vegetation on it so it doesn't erode again. Yeah, this pond's in pretty good shape. So let's go to the overflow structure. That's where the water's going to go next. And overflow structures can be a wide variety of different facilities. This one happens to be what we call a beehive. And it's just a big cylinder of concrete with a grate over the top of it. So when the pond gets up to a certain level, it spills into that beehive and then goes to the dry pond to infiltrate back into the groundwater. So this particular beehive structure has a downturned 90-degree elbow. And what that does is it keeps oil and floatables from floating over into the dry pond where we don't want it. So if you see any floatables or oil in your beehive structure or your overflow structure, you're going to want to get that taken care of and cleaned out. And again, if you have questions about how to do oil or something like that, call your jurisdiction and they'll help you out. This looks like it's in really good shape though, so that's good. So from here, the water is going to go over to the dry pond for infiltration. So it flows from the beehive under the street and again into another inlet. Now here again, you can see the riprap really good. It's in really good shape. There's not any weeds in the riprap. Our pipe's clear of sediment, which is a good thing. Any pipe that's over 18 inches should have a trash rack, and that's basically a grate that covers it. So if your trash rack is damaged or it's missing, contact your jurisdiction or go to a plumbing supply store and they'll hook you up with a trash rack. Again, you want to check your general pond area for invasive weeds, overgrown vegetation, erosion. An infiltration pond should not have a liner, so you don't have to worry about that. But you still want to keep it maintained, keep the grass cut below 10 inches is the threshold for maintenance on vegetation in a pond area. So if your grass is getting up over 10 inches, you want to get it cut. And so that could be 3 or 4 times a year. It could be once a year. It just depends on your situation. So keep an eye on that. And then if you have any specialty type of proprietary facility in your storm pond or in your storm area system, contact your jurisdiction and they can help you inspect that and connect you with the proprietor that sells that particular item, and they can come and help inspect as well. So with that,
only other thing I would mention is that there are some saplings around the wet pond, if you saw that, and it's best to get those when they're really small. So yeah, the smaller diameter the trees are, the little alders and those invasive trees, the better they are when they're small.
yeah, the smaller the tree, the less likely it has already damaged the liner as well. So if you get them early, there's less likelihood that you'll have to have some expensive repairs and repairing that liner with the larger root systems. So with that, thanks for joining me on my inspection. This one's in pretty good shape. Hopefully yours is too.
So we're going to enter into Q&A now. Just a reminder for folks who joined a bit later, the Q&A can be found if you move your cursor around or down to the bottom of your screen. An icon will pop up that says Q&A. Click there and submit any of your questions. We've got quite the team here ready to answer for you tonight. So any question's a good question. Some questions we'll be able to type answers to, and others we will answer live. And with that, we're going to stop sharing the screen and go into gallery mode so that you can see all of us. So everybody turn your videos on. Okay, here we are in the flesh. So panelists, this is a good time to also unmute yourself. So just to begin with, I'm going to say, let's all unmute ourselves and feel free to give a shout out, say hello.
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 Hi there.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
Tumwater.
Hello.
So yes, this is Thurston County, the city of Tumwater, the city of Lacey, and the city of Olympia. All here for you. We've got our outreach folks and our stormwater inspectors. So any question, fair game. Let's get started. So to begin with, I'm seeing a very interesting one here. It's from an anonymous attendee. Our dry pond inlet catch basin located in the county right-of-way has no sump. The concrete bottom is inches below the outlet pipe. Would the county consider replacing it with a true catch basin?
Yeah, I can go ahead. If it's Thurston County, I think the best answer would be to have one of us give one of us a call, and we can put in a service request to check that catch basin out. If there is no true sump, it's likely that it was installed under a previous drainage manual. So it could be something worth investigating, and yeah, we'd be happy to look into that further.
Okay, does anybody have any additional thoughts there?
I do. I would say that if that's the way it was designed, as if you have the as-built and you see that that was how that catch basin was designed, then it would require having an engineer come and look at that system and see if it needs to be, could be upgraded to something different. But that would have to be an approved change to the plan.
Okay, that's a really good reminder for anyone who has a facility that they're thinking about modifying in any way. That's why we always refer you back to your as-built to begin with before you get started with any planning, because that way you can see what the original engineer drawing says and has going on. and you're always supposed to stick with the specs. Now, if it's completely failing or if it's outdated, then I would definitely call the jurisdiction and see if they can do a site visit and come out and help you plan to move forward on that. Okay.
There's one question under the answered tab that we should go over.
I see that. Thanks, Skylar. Rachel Chica says, our community has gone through most of the city's list of storm pond contractors, walked through with several of the contractors and asked for bids. At this point, no contractors have followed up. What do we do now? As a community that needs major work done, this is a major problem. I would agree. Okay. Any thoughts?
Well, I'd just like to put out the Thurston County's great resource. We have a pretty good list of approved contractors in the county. So I'm going to type that in under your question, Rachel. I'm going to send that out. So if you haven't already, I would just recommend looking through that list, compiling a list of several contractors. I like to meet with contractors all at once on site, walk your facility. That way everyone can get eyes on exactly what you're interested in. And in my experience, you'll have no problem getting bids and quotes from those contractors.
Just in case they've already gone through that, it sounds like they may have already gone through that initial process. Do we have an answer for them in case they've already kind of gone through that initial phase?
Well, I'm just kind of wondering if there's so much work that needs to be done that you know, a lot of these contractors are stretched pretty thin, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Maybe think about piecing it up a little bit and having, say, one contractor come in and do the ponds, another contractor come in and do the catch basins, and so on and so forth. If you can kind of piece it out a little bit, it might seem a little bit more attainable for a contractor to come in and give you a bid.
I agree. I'd like to probably put my own eyes on the site itself. If you're in our jurisdiction or in any jurisdiction, I'd invite you to reach out to us, and maybe we need to go out there and take a look at it too, and just decide, maybe see what the contractors are seeing, that because that's rare that a contractor wouldn't at least propose.
It looks like this might be
something.
an issue. Another question was from Sharon, who had the same problem. She sent a scope of work to 4 contractors on the list and only received 1 response.
Huh. Now I wonder if this has anything to do with COVID, making everything a little bit upside down, because it isn't normal that contractors wouldn't be putting in bids. That doesn't seem like what we normally see.
I think you might be able to talk with some other HOAs and see what contractor they're using and see if you can't get a direct connection with them. And also at that time, you know, kind of get a feel with how if they like them or not, how long they've been with them, if they're doing a good job. Yeah, I just start checking with different neighborhoods and see who they use.
And just to circle back to the list that Matthew brought up, those contractors are very active, and we've met in many cases in the past doing similar workshops with them. And so that's something I'd like to meet with on site and just determine what the issues are.
Okay.
Also, it looks like Rachel followed up and said that they did do a walkthrough with the City of Olympia. So this is a City of Olympia neighborhood.
Okay, I see that now, Rachel. So Rachel has already done a walkthrough with the City of Olympia. Okay. Well, Susan and Kane are on this call from the City of Olympia. And would one or both of you be able to give your contact information to Rachel under the chat, just so that we can make amends here and see what's going on? Maybe circle back with Rachel.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thanks, Kane. Okay. So Dustin Taylor says, what does and does not constitute proper vegetation for dry pond berms? More particularly, is thick moss sufficient or are grasses required?
Duggan,
I can answer that.
yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Duggan and I have seen a lot of that lately when
Yeah.
doing our inspections.
Yeah, so I mean, thick moss is I wouldn't say it's sufficient for a berm because you need something that holds the soil in place. So I would definitely recommend having a grass layer, at least on the berms, because moss, as you know, it doesn't go the roots doesn't go deep into the soil, so and you can remove it easily. So I would highly recommend having a good grass layer, and there are so many landscaping companies that they could you could have the berm area seeded depending on the month, and depending on how many trees there are on the berms, because we see a lot of trees on pond berms as well. So you might have to seed that area a little more than normal, because you might have to irrigate that more regularly. But yeah, that's my take, but I welcome other inspectors to share their opinion on this.
I would definitely echo the grass comment. Grasses tend to put out really nice roots, and that's what's going to be holding your berm soils down. It'll be a much more sustainable option for vegetation along your berms. Does anybody else have any other thoughts there?
I would just add that we're probably going to have a dry summer this year. So if you're planning on seeding, you're going to need to make sure that your seeds stay moist through germination, and you're going to have to water through the summer for that grass to get established. I would recommend visiting the Stream Team website and looking under the natural lawn care page for the natural lawn care videos. If you're going to do it yourself, it'll give you a lot of good ideas how to establish a good, healthy lawn without using any, fertilizers that could harm, the local water quality or any pesticides. So I definitely check that out.
You might also check the plan and see if there's a seed mix that they used originally that would be a hardier variety for that location, and something, if there is shade, something that would be shade tolerant.
Yeah, and we always recommend a Pacific Northwest seed mixture, and definitely shade variety for shade, sun variety for sun.
All right.
Also, I would like to add that this would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the ponds which have, trees on the slopes and on the berm. Plan on cutting those trees, or like 1 to 2 trees every year, for the longevity of your pond, because fixing a pond once it's the slopes are gone, it's really expensive. So you might also have to think about that.
Good point, Gagan. I'm gonna skip down to Scott Elgin, who says, for Mr. Brar, I sent you a request for our as-built Rainier Park at Breckenridge, and you responded quickly. Thanks. My question is, will the as-built show all the stormwater systems for our community, or are there other things I should be asking for?
I actually, I was working on one of the phases of Rainier Park today, but I'll get you the as-built by early next week. And I think all you need is the as-built, but if you need the maintenance agreement, I can also work on finding those maintenance agreements for you. But I think having these as-builts is more than enough for now. And I can also come on site and meet with you and walk, do an inspection walkthrough of the stormwater facilities in the neighborhood, if you like. So please reach out to me and on my email, or just give me a call whenever.
Perfect. That's awesome, Gagan. Yes, that goes for all of you out there. If if you're having issues reading your as-built, or if you're uncertain about something and you just need to give a call to one of the inspectors and kind of walk through it together, or a site visit, those can happen as well. And they can happen safely. If you're concerned, you know, we'll come out masked and keep a safe distance. So definitely reach out to us. And thank you for the kudos. Everybody loves getting kudos occasionally. So good job on that, Gagan. It's always good to respond quickly and be thorough, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. Okay, Greg Darnell. Hi, Greg. Great job in the discussion, by the way. Greg says, are dry pond outlet orifice size calculations being re-examined based on anticipated future rainfall increases due to climate change? The county road just outside of our dry pond flooded during the last set of heavy rains. Water was coming up out of the manhole, covering the catch basin inlet and into the street because the pond was in overflow.
That's another situation where the design was, the engineers designed that pond for a certain amount of flow at the time it was installed. And so if it's not functioning properly, it's probably would have to have an engineer look at it and see if it still will meet the requirements at this time. And you'd have to have them do a new design and submit it and have it approved by the county to meet the needs of that site and the amount of water coming to it. Maybe there's
Kathy, Greg is saying that it was designed and installed in the early 80s.
Yeah, so probably at that time, the development probably wasn't, completely built out, and there probably are more garages and RV storage buildings and such on each of those properties. So there's a lot more flow coming to that pond probably now, and maybe it should be re-looked at as to how much water is that pond taking on. Maybe they've paved more sidewalks and driveways, widened driveways, all kinds of things can have an effect on that.
And if it's county right of way, you could request the jurisdiction to, have that as a potential project in the future to, minimize the flooding. Because I know City of Lacey have a couple of such projects where we are actually designing new stormwater facilities for these flooded areas that usually, inundate during rainfall. So you can definitely reach out to the jurisdiction as well.
A good point on that is when there is flooding going on, to make sure you call and get some pictures, maybe some video, get somebody to see if you can get somebody from the county to come out and take a look at what's happening, and that would be helpful.
With regard to planning ahead for climate change, the impacts climate change making a rainfall, I know our stormwater utilities engineer, as part of their stormwater design manual, they do review the rainfall data annually, and I believe every 10 years, I think they make adjustments.
Yeah.
Is that right, Guggen? Yeah.
Yep.
Every 10 years, they look at the previous data, and they make the adjustments for annual rainfall, and then they design and engineer facilities accordingly. And I believe other jurisdictions would do the same as well. Yeah.
Kathy, as a follow-up, because this is a Thurston, maybe this is in unincorporated Thurston County. Is it too late? Can they, can this person, if it is in unincorporated Thurston County, can they contact us, or do should we give them the website address for to report flooding, or do they need to wait and see if it happens again in the future?
They could probably submit something, just a summary of what happened, when it happened, if it was in one of those large rain events that we had this winter, and then see that it's really best to actually have some actual eyes on it when it's happening. So
Yeah.
it's just not guessing.
And also, I would like to add one thing. The last set of heavy rains was, one of them was like one in I think 100-year or 1,000-year event. Carlos, I'm not sure, but that was like a rare event. Everywhere there was flooding. So, you know, if that was the case, then, you know, you cannot have such a large system. But if it floods every now and then of course, yeah, definitely contact jurisdiction.
Yeah, Greg, I would definitely recommend contact Kathy, contact Skylar, document when these events are happening, take pictures. And like Kathy said, it's so helpful if we can actually see when it's happening. But it really will depend on how often it's happening and the severity and all the context about that particular flooding as it pertains to the system and the system design. So document these occurrences and definitely reach out to Thurston County and at least let's start a conversation about this. Maybe get a site visit going. All right, Rachel Chica, is there grants available for any work that needs to be done in storm ponds? Yes. There's several programs. So would anybody like to talk about the free dumpster programs? I can talk about the free dumpster programs. So Thurston County, the City of Lacey, and the City of Tumwater all have a free dumpster program. If you go into the course community, you should have all received information on how to access the course community. And if you've been into the course online, there's actually a section that will take you directly into the community. And there's a lot of discussion that can happen in there. I've posted all of our free dumpster program information and application forms in that discussion forum. Currently, the City of Olympia does not have that program, but what this program does for all three of our jurisdictions that do is it's a one time per pond program, and we will coordinate with you to bring out a dumpster to your pond site where you can then put your vegetation for a large pond clean out, and then we will also coordinate the removal and taking that dumpster to where it needs to go. So all you need to do is qualify. So look at the different information sheets depending on your jurisdiction and then apply, and then we can get the process started there. And you can either do it as a community event. You know, those are a little bit tricky these days, or you can hire a contractor to do the work, but we will still send out the dumpster for you. So that's one type of grant that's available.
And I don't know about other jurisdictions, but Lacey, we have this grant program where City of Lacey would match up to $2,500 if your neighborhood pitch in the rest of the money. So, you know, contact me or Emily or Carlos for more information on that. We can provide you the flyers and the application for that.
Okay. Sharon, I think it's Kofs, says 5 stars for Gagan. He visited with Rainier Crossing several times. I have a question on 3 shallow catch basins in a grassed area that have a filter system attached to the top. We were asked to remove the filter. However, these basins are small and lead into a 4 to 5 outlet pipe that runs under our private road to a swale. How do you feel about having our landscapers clean the filter each month and leave in place? Power jetting the outlet pipe would be very difficult.
Are those the side yard drains, you think?
Yeah, I think she's talking about the green small
the little green guys, yeah.
Greens, yeah. And I don't think, Sharon, those were filters. Those were actually inlet socks, right, Carlos? Those
Yeah,
were,
they were like protection for the inlets.
yeah, when during construction.
Correct.
So I don't think you should be leaving those, now
No.
and everything is stabilized and you have grass growing, because grass does the filtration, so you don't need any more additional filtration. Plus the runoff is eventually going into a grass swale, which also does another filtration, and then it goes to the dry pond and infiltrates. So I think you're good.
And she is confirming that they are green. So I think you guys
Yeah.
know what she's talking about. Okay.
Typically, because they're so small, it's probably good to check them after every heavy rain event.
Exactly.
But the regular cleaning, the monthly cleaning, that'd probably be fine too.
Yeah, just keep an eye on them, and if you see anything, any vegetation blocking the entry or the outlet or the inlet, just remove the vegetation. And I think anyone can do these type of maintenance activities,
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
She says, yes, can we replace with a filter to keep grass and dirt out of them?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple to remove. I know it's kind of muddy, but there shouldn't be too much material that enters the base of those yard drains. So you can scoop it out with a small hand trowel or a gloved hand. And like Guggen mentioned earlier, because there's grass around those drains, the likelihood of a lot of sediment and debris filling those up is very small.
I mean, if you really want, you can, but that's additional cost. And probably you would have to come and take a look every now and then, because small filter screens, they clog pretty quick. So you might have to come every couple of days and just take a look at them.
And if I recall correctly, these filters that we saw at the time, they had moss overgrown on them, and they really were hindering the performance of those drains. We want to make sure those are free-flowing drains and that they're conveying the water away from the yard.
I'm hearing a great job for the City of Lacey and Thurston County, and I'm just going to say, and Tumwater too, because Tumwater also has this free dumpster program. They're saying great job for the dumpster program and the matching grant. What does the City of Olympia have?
I can answer that. So we're currently working on getting a program like this up and running, Rachel. So I think you should touch base with Kane and keep in touch with him and see how that program is moving along. I think comments like yours are really helpful to help us get these programs going. So I appreciate your comments, and definitely get in touch with Kane, and we're going to pass your sentiments on to our management that helps us get these programs going for you. So thank you.
Okay, Anne Marie, did you want to weave in some of the other questions we've been receiving?
Yes. Okay, so first question is, our pond has a lot of yellow flag iris. Can we chemically treat it?
I can answer that. We don't, all the jurisdictions and all the inspectors, we don't recommend, dumping chemicals in the ponds, but if the chemical treatment is really necessary, then you must hire a licensed aquatic applicator. I believe you would also have that information on Thurston County's contractors list, I believe, but please double check. But yeah, definitely, if there's no other option, then you must hire a licensed aquatic applicator for that job. And they must not let that chemical go out of the pond into the surface waters, and they must contact the county or the city before applying that. They might have to, based on on certain maintenance agreements of certain neighborhoods, they might have to take some kind of a permit from a city or a county. So they might have to contact the jurisdiction as well.
Thank you.
Any other
Does anyone
thoughts?
want to add to that? Thank you. I do want to just point out, I think Kelsey, in the course online, there should be links for the Thurston County Noxious Weeds
There is.
website. So there, the link is in the materials online for that. So that's a great place to start too. If you're dealing with any kind of weeds or noxious weeds, their website has specific information on various different methods, effective methods for removing, getting rid of weeds, noxious weeds. So that's a great place to start. And they're a wealth of resource of information, as well as your individual stormwater inspectors for your jurisdiction.
Yes, I'm going to take this time to plug the course community. If you haven't yet explored that, there is a good discussion going on about applying herbicides around stormwater facilities. And so there's been some answers that I've posted recently, and it's pretty thorough, and included in those answers are all the contacts for Thurston County noxious weeds, including a telephone number, an email, and the website.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. And again, I have another question here, which is, I hear it is best to remove cattails in my pond before they go to seed. When is this?
I can answer that one. It's the plants go to seed in the spring, the female plant. And so right when it's starting to turn brown, that's the time to cut out all of the tops. If you have to cut them out, that would be the time to cut them out. And that's after the birds, usually the red-winged blackbirds have already fledged, and it's a safe time to do that. But if you're gonna pull the plant out, the best time to do that is in the winter months when the water's fairly deep and the root systems in the center of the pond isn't as rooted in. It's usually just a big mat, and you can pull it up and gently pull it up and push it off to the sides of the pond and rake it out from there and let it de-water, and so it's not so heavy, and then dispose of it.
Right on, Kathy. Anybody else have thoughts on cattails? Okay.
Okay, well, we have more questions. So next question, our bioswale is difficult to maintain. I'm assuming this is a grass-lined bioswale. Can I just fill it up with rocks? Will it still convey water?
Actually, I'll answer this. It's not a good idea to fill it up with rocks. The grass is there for a reason. Part of it is to slowly infiltrate the water and also to remove pollutants as it's doing that. So when you have rocks, the movement of the water is going to be much faster, and it's not going to infiltrate the way it should. And it also won't do any of that pollutant removal that we'd like to see. Another problem with rocks is they tend to get weeds and things in them, and they're really difficult to maintain. It's really actually much easier to maintain a grass swale than it is to maintain an area that's been filled in with rocks. It can be quite a maintenance nightmare.
Thank you, Susan. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to that? Okay, then we can move on. We still have more questions. Let's see. I see lots of dead leaves and debris in our wet pond. Is that good? And can I remove it using a pool skimmer, shovel, or rake?
I can jump on this one. So the short answer is yeah. Feel free to rake out, scoop out all those leaves. As the leaves break down in the pond, they release a lot of nutrients and can affect water quality of the pond. They can also increase sediment loading of the pond, decreasing its storage capacity. Dead leaves can also clog up pond outlets, so your pond could potentially flood and you could see some flooding issues. And too, with a lot of the planting plans on ponds as they're designed, usually broadleaf trees, so trees that drop their leaves are away from the ponds, just so when they do shed their leaves every year, they don't fall into the ponds. So the short answer is yes, remove as many leaves as you'd like.
Great, thank you, Matthew. Here's another question. Where can we get a weed wrench? I'm assuming this is probably going to be used for removing Scotch broom.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So most of the jurisdictions have weed wrenches to check out. At City of Lacey, all you have to do is contact Guggen or I, and we will just set them up at City Hall counter. I know that can be tricky, especially with COVID going on right now. I have dropped them off at locations for folks before, so we're still able to do that contact list. So just contact your stormwater representative and we'll find you the resource for where to get them.
And I'm going to follow up on that. Thank you, Emily. Is it true for all the cities and the county that folks can check out weed wrenches from all of you? And is there a cost in doing so? I believe there's not for any of the cities or for the stormwater utility, but then there might be a Noxious Weeds also checks out Scotch broom pullers or weed pullers, but I think they might have a slight fee involved. I can't remember, but I do think that for the cities and the stormwater utility portion of the county, we check those out for free. And I'm seeing everyone shaking their heads. Yes, so all three of the cities and the county stormwater utility have Scotch broom pullers available to check out, and you can contact any of us on on the list, the stormwater inspectors or the education outreach staff who can help put you in touch with the right folks to check those out. Okay. So let's see, we have more questions. Oh, here's a good one. Can we use our dry pond for livestock grazing or raise chickens in it?
Okay, I'll take that one. And no, that's not, the ponds aren't designed to be a pasture. They're designed to hold and treat water. So any animals have to be kept out of the pond area. And it's you're trying to keep the groundwater clean. And so that's just going to add nutrients to the groundwater. And so every livestock, chickens, goats, sheep, all that for ongoing pasturing need to be outside of the pond.
Should we make a disclaimer for the dog walking question that continues to come up?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that storm ponds oftentimes end up being grounds for people to walk their dog and let their dog do his business there. And that's also not a good idea. So trying to keep animals or any kind of pet waste out of the storm pond is what we're really looking for. And if your neighborhood has a pet waste problem, all of our jurisdictions offer free neighborhood pet waste stations and signage. So please contact any of us and we're happy to help you out with that.
Perfect. And as Susan just said, I'm just going to reiterate, all of our jurisdictions have free pet waste stations. So if you don't know about this program, it's awesome. If you find areas in your neighborhood or HOA where they could really use a pet waste station, maybe folks aren't picking up after their puppies, contact your jurisdiction and you can apply and get a free pet waste station. It's a really great program.
Looks like we have a new question in the chat from
Yes,
Dale.
it does.
Dale
Dale
asked, what is your
Davis.
position on car washing and pressure washing of driveways that end up in a dry pond?
It's a great question.
I will be happy to answer that. So we encourage folks to, when washing your cars, we encourage you to take your car to a commercial car wash or find another way to wash your car in such a way where you're not letting the runoff, the wash water, the soapy water, the dirty water run off your surfaces and go into a storm drain or a drainage ditch or a pipe, because that is, even just wash water with soap in it is a potential stormwater pollutant. So the best thing recommend is you can take it to a commercial car wash, or if you can find a space where you can pull your vehicle onto your lawn so that the water, the dirty wash water would then soak into the soil and get cleaned up. Some of it can get cleaned up as it soaks into the soil. Another option I've seen folks do is they run something like a hose or such across part of their driveway that encourages the wash water to run, get stopped before it runs all the way down the driveway, and then the flow goes into your grass. But any type of car washing water has soaps in it and dirt, metals, other kinds of pollutants that we don't want getting into our stormwater systems. Most of our stormwater systems either drain to surface waters like lakes or rivers or Puget Sound. Some of them infiltrate water into groundwater, and we certainly don't want pollutants getting down into groundwater, which is a major source of drinking water. And that's the same thing with pressure washing of driveways. If you don't mind doing good old fashioned elbow grease, that's what I like to do, get a little exercise, and I sweep my driveway and my sidewalks. And I always sweep it. If it's got a lot of debris in it, then I'll sweep that up and put it into the garbage. Or if it's just dirt, I'll sweep it and put it, sweep it into my garden beds or my lawn. And so that the first thing I would recommend is if you can sweep instead of pressure washing, great. If you're going to pressure wash, then pressure wash and direct the dirty wash water into like a landscape vegetated area, not so that it runs down your driveway to then flow into a storm drain or some other part of the stormwater system. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add that it's particularly important now because we're finding out now that there's a direct correlation between tire dust particles and early spawn mortality for coho salmon. So if you're pressure washing your driveway, you're pressure washing that tire dust into the storm drain system, which is ending up in our rivers, lakes, and Puget Sound. So so this is more important than ever now to really be cognizant of not pressure washing those areas. And I would just add one more thing. If you're going to park your car on your lawn to wash your car, make sure that you're not parking on top of your on-site sewage septic system, because you could damage it by doing that. So
yeah.
Definitely. Did anybody want to add anything else? Otherwise, I want to weave back to the conversation about dry ponds as dog parks. So we're having a little bit of confusion here because there was some discussion in our community for the course, and a response to a question about dry ponds as dog parks was yes, but you just need to patrol and make sure you're picking up after the puppies. So I think we need to get clear on this for folks. The question is, I feel like we're getting a mixed message on dog park usage for dry ponds. In the training materials and the video we saw earlier, they talk about use as dog parks. Now I'm gonna say real quick, use as dog parks, there's a issue of scale here. So when you say dog park, you could mean, a few dogs, or you could mean a lot of dogs. And so scale can really make a huge difference here. I think of a park that I used to live on, Yager Park in the city of Olympia, where the whole thing is a stormwater system. There are tons of dry ponds that are used for recreation, and lots of folks take their dogs there. I, myself included, our dog was a big fan. And there's garbage cans set up throughout, and there's a good morale at that park. It's never gotten real dirty. I've never seen a lot of dog poop. People have been pretty good about picking up after their pets. And so that's really, really key. However, it's not called a dog park. They don't call Yager Park a dog park. So I believe one of the questions that Greg had earlier in the discussion was if a community or HOA could fence a dry pond and actually establish it as their community's dog park. What do folks think there?
Well, one of my concerns would be immediately is how would you maintain the grass there? Because dogs tend to be really hard on grass. And so that would be a concern for me, is how would you keep that grass healthy, which you need it to be for the dry pond, with all that dog traffic there. Because dog urine can kill grass, and just, the having too much, activity on grass is hard on grass. And especially if you're doing that kind of thing during the summer when lawns are under stress in the Pacific Northwest. I don't see it as being a good idea. It may end up costing you more money than it's worth in the long run to have to go back and maintain that pond. So that would be something I would consider.
Good point. And Greg, we can continue this discussion in the community, because I think it is sort of an issue of scale, because like Susan said, we all know, I mean, my dog has made an X in our front yard from peeing in the same spot in the perfect pattern. He's made an X. And so we know that's one dog's impact. We know that dogs can have a big impact on grass, as Susan's saying. So let's keep chatting about this, because we also know that dry ponds can make great uses, stacked uses. They're used as ballparks. They're used for kids to run around and play in. And yeah, a lot of dogs do end up running through and doing their business in them as well. So let's continue chatting about this in the course discussion forum. And because I know we have a few more questions we want to get through.
Well, we have a related question, which is, can we set up a volleyball net in our dry pond?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely use your drainage facilities for recreational use. Kind of going off that last question a little bit, I think when we start talking about permanent installation of things instead of like a temporary thing, it can get a little iffy and need a little more discussion. And if you're talking about a permanent dog park or something like that, that would be a little different than just going to walk your dog and then clean it up after your pet when you're done. Please correct me, anybody, if that's wrong. But yes, please use your facilities for recreational use, especially when it's nice out.
Thank you, Skylar. Speaking of nice out, this is the time of year when people are thinking about taking care of their lawns. Can I use weed and feed products on the grass around my pond?
I guess I'm going to answer that one too, because I'm on the lawn. I'm on a lawn spree right now. So weed and feed we don't recommend using weed and feed ever, and especially not in storm ponds. And for some of the reasons that I mentioned earlier, weed and feed contains pesticides, which are not good for aquatic life, and also they're not good for soil health. So in the long run, all those pesticides that you're putting onto your lawn to make it green are actually destroying the health of your soil. So all the microbial activity and things that need to happen underneath your lawn aren't able to happen anymore. So it's almost like you get addicted to using those products to keep your lawn healthy and green. We would really much rather see people using natural lawn care methods. And as I said before, you can go to the Stream Team website to learn out how to do that. It's okay to use slow release fertilizers. That's completely different than using a weed and feed product. So if you need more information about that, any of our jurisdictions are happy to help you out with that.
I'm going to jump in here. I've got a question coming through that's also related to dry ponds from an anonymous attendee. Is it okay for kids to play in dry ponds as all the stuff from the yards are washed into it? If so, any age kids or some like to toddle and younger, like toddlers and younger? So is there an age requirement for kids being able to play in dry ponds?
I can answer that. It's fine for kids to play in the dry ponds. I mean, we see a lot of kids in big dry ponds around the area, but just, you have to teach the kids not to destroy the dry ponds, because that's what I've seen around the neighborhoods. you know, they replace the ripraps, the rocks on the ponds, on the emergency spillway. Those are really important. So you know, it's fine. It's totally fine for kids to play in the dry pond, but just make sure that they are not destroying the facilities, and you know, you're maintaining it, the grass and the rocks and the outlets, and everything. And I guess it would also be a good opportunity to teach your kid about a stormwater facility.
I would add to that, with a lot of the questions we've been getting about, you know, whether it's natural yard care or pet waste or washing your cars, talking to your neighborhoods about what your stormwater facilities are and why it's important and what they serve, you know, the purpose they serve, is a great way to just make sure that your neighborhood is aware of what's going on, and so that everybody can work together in order to make this whole neighborhood a safe area for your pets, your family, and your kids to be able to live happy and healthy lives in.
And if you ever want one of us to, it's tricky right now without in-person meetings, but I have attended HOA board meetings before, or just neighborhood meetings before, to talk about those specific things. So if ever you want us to share materials or make talking points and just have that conversation with your neighborhood or community, we're all more than willing.
Exactly. Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Emily said. You know, feel free to have us on site. We're happy to be on site.
Thank you, all of you. Oh, did someone have something to add?
I just wanted to add real quickly to, you know, when these facilities are first built, when they're finished, one of the things that we ask is that they place signage to remind the neighborhood that this is a stormwater facility. So yes, absolutely, if you can use that facility for something else, as long as it's not contributing to any harm to that facility's ability to perform, by all means, please do so, but do so respectfully, please.
And many of the jurisdictions provide free signage for your stormwater facilities. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody doesn't, but there's a pretty simple application. Just reach out to your representative. We provide free signage for wet and dry ponds so that everybody walking by knows what it is, what its purpose is, and how best to take care of it.
I believe we all do. Yes? Yeah. So reach out to your jurisdiction if you would like a stormwater facility sign.
Thank you all. We've got some more questions. As I'm sitting outside, I'm hearing some wildlife here, some related to wildlife. What do I do if I see bullfrogs in my pond?
I can take this one. One of the benefits of stormwater ponds, especially wet ponds, is that they do provide great habitat for wildlife. Unfortunately, that wildlife that is in there might not be great for the area. Bullfrogs are one of these invasive species that have kind of just taken over in Western Washington. They pretty much will eat anything, and they're taking out a lot of native species from around here. So in general, we don't want them. You can report bullfrogs and their invasive species to the Washington Recreation and Conservation community. There's an email address that I can drop in the chat if anybody is interested. It's invasivespecies.wa.gov. If you email them, they'll be able to know about it. But one of the great ways to prevent bullfrogs from getting there in the first place is just maintaining the vegetation in your pond. A lot of these frogs like taking over when there's a ton of vegetation and there are places for them to hide from predators and stuff. Keeping your pond maintained is the best way to make sure that you're not having bullfrogs in the area.
All right, thank you, Meredith. Staying on the topic of ponds, we have a question here. Does my stormwater pond have to be fenced?
Yes, well, it depends. If you have a wet pond with slopes greater than 3 to 1, or 3 horizontal and 1 vertical, should have fencing installed at least 72 inches in height. So also, if there's 10% of slopes that are steeper than that same ratio, 3 to 1, it's recommended that the entire pond be fenced as well. And that's just to prevent kids or people from falling in.
That's a great answer. And then some ponds, some neighborhoods just feel safer in general having the fence, and so that's that's fine too. It's just important that you maintain the fence and keep overgrown vegetation down and keep a clear access way to enter the pond. I'm seeing an anonymous attendee is asking, we have some homeowners that are tossing tree limbs and clippings into the ponds. Are there any city ordinances that we can use to help mitigate this?
Oh yeah, that's an illicit discharge, and you can call your stormwater inspector, and they can come and talk to the neighbors and tell them about the ordinances all the cities and counties have on illicit discharges. So that would count as dumping. So definitely call your stormwater inspector.
Sorry, Gagan. Yes, reach out to your stormwater inspector. That's definitely not something that you want folks doing, especially since it's a shared pond for your neighborhood or HOA. And as you're learning in the course and as we've discussed tonight, the more vegetation and tree limbs and sediment and things that are in your pond, the less the carrying capacity that pond then has to function. So that's just going to require more maintenance, and it also could cause some flooding when normally it wouldn't flood. So keep your eyes out for that, and it could be a good time for you to even tell those folks that there's a great course that they should sign up for. And they can take the next online course. And one of these days, maybe we'll be live in person doing live workshops again. I want to say we are just about at 90 minutes now. So how do folks feel? Should we do a couple more questions?
I just wanted to add on to that really quick, Kelsey.
Sure,
I think that most of our jurisdictions would be willing to do like a postcard mailing. If you're seeing this problem in your HOA, we could help by, doing a mailing to your neighborhood to remind people in your neighborhood that that's
a great idea, Susan.
Proper behavior.
Yeah. So anonymous attendee, I don't know who you are, but reach out to your jurisdiction or go into the course discussion and we can talk about a plan there. Maybe we'll do like Susan says and plan to send out a postcard. Maybe you could talk to them if you know them and let them know you took this great course, and they can learn why not to do that as well. There are several different avenues we can take here. I'm seeing a few new questions here. Dale Davis is saying, can you explain the difference between letting car wash and pressure wash runoff go onto a lawn and letting it go to a dry pond, essentially a lawn?
So dry ponds typically have soils underneath that are permeable and that permit the water to percolate through the soils and enter the groundwater. We don't want soaps and, or for that matter, pesticides or anything particularly toxic to enter that. The reason why we would prefer car washing to happen at a commercial car wash where they have facilities in place to manage that contaminated water. But if you're going to wash your car at home and on your lawn, that is certainly better than allowing it to run off into the storm system and downstream into the systems.
And also, I would also like to add that that would not be okay according to the cities and counties ordinances, because how will that wash water go from your property to dry pond? It would most certainly be going through the storm drains and storm sewer pipes, and if it does that, that's an illicit discharge. And if you know someone that is doing that, or if you're doing that, so that is against regulations. That would be the number one thing I would go with or start with. That's an illicit discharge. You shouldn't be doing that. And the second reason we recommend washing your car onto your lawn is that because it's just one or two cars from on your property that are discharging water into the ground. But in the dry pond, it's all the properties go into the dry pond, and it's a really big source of runoff percolating into the ground. And most of our jurisdictions water supply comes from underground aquifers. So with such huge amount of chemicals mixing with aquifers, we don't really want that. So that would be my take on that.
That's great. Again, it's actually roughly 90% in Thurston County of our drinking water that's coming from underground aquifers. So he's absolutely right. We want to protect that water in any way that we can.
And Kelsey, if I could add to that, I am
Yes.
not a geologist, a specialist, but I do know that throughout Thurston County, we have a mix of soils, and much of our soils tends to be well draining. And so there is a potential, if you do wash your car on your lawn, that you could have soils where that water could soak in down enough to get down into groundwater. So that's why we say our first recommendation is to take your car to a commercial car wash. I would say pretty much most of the commercial car washes in the cities and in unincorporated Thurston County, they do a couple of things. They reuse wash water, so they're using less water overall. They also clean up some of the wash water before it does go get sent to a water treatment plant. So the water at commercial car washes is not getting sent into our storm water system. So that's why that's the first priority that we would say if we ordered it, that we encourage folks, if you can't afford to go to the commercial car wash, that's best for keeping pollutants out of our stormwater runoff and out of our drinking water as well.
The little saying that most people use is only rain down the storm drain. So if it's anything but rain falling from the sky that's running off naturally, it shouldn't go down the storm drain, including wash water from your car.
Absolutely.
And if you see someone doing that, just call your stormwater inspector.
Anne-Marie, do you want to do one more question? And then we can close the Q&A unless I see some other questions pop up.
Yes. So let's see. Oh, I had one here. If how do we know when the sediment buildup? We talked about this a little bit, but there's two parts to this question. How do we know when the sediment buildup in our pond needs to be removed? What's the best way to remove it and dispose of it?
I can go with that one. So it should be removed from your pond when it's acclimated from at the bottom, the depth of the pond, when it goes over the zone that would exceed where it should be at. And the best way to know about that is checking your as-built and seeing where the space is required to the pipe invert. But you should also, it should be recommended to test your soil before you dispose of it. And then if you'd also like to, you can then, that's where you would talk to your vendor and assign a vendor to hopefully take it from you.
Thank you, Kane. Did anyone want to add to that answer before we wrap up our questions?
Okay. Well, it's 7:35. We've gone a little bit beyond the hour-and-a-half mark. So I think that's going to be it for the Q&A. So one last thing relating to the online course, I want to touch base with folks and just remind you that to receive your course certificate of completion, there are two requirements. One, to submit your stormwater management checklist, and I've been receiving a ton of those, so great job, everyone. And to complete 100% of the online course content by 4 p.m. April 30th. So you still have quite a bit of time there. I hope you're all really enjoying that. I encourage you all to go on to the community discussion forum that's set up within the course. You can access it within the course, and I'll also be sending out a few more emails that will take you into the discussion forum as well and participate in some of the great discussion there. A lot of questions that we can discuss further and get a little deeper on some of the topics that we touch on in the course. but don't go super deep into, we can go a lot deeper into in the course discussion forum. And then, as we've been saying all along, stay in touch. Contact the online course instructor, myself. Here's my email. All 4 of the jurisdiction stormwater inspectors' emails are here. And the handout for the course has all of our contact information as well. I've done my best to weave it into all the content throughout the course, just so that you know, really, when you have issues, when you have questions, if you need a site walk through, if you're having a hard time finding your as-built, reach out to us because we're here to help you. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this virtual stormwater inspections webinar from Thurston County, the City of Lacey, the City of Olympia, and the City of Tumwater. Thank you, thank you. Reach out to us, and we look forward to working with you all to protect our water throughout Thurston County.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, thanks.